You're listening to the Property Management Excellence Podcast for insights that drive rapid rental growth.
Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Great to have you with us. I'm your host, Alex Whitlock, co-founder of Managed, also director of REB. I wanted to tackle a topic today which is really at the forefront of, I guess, of sort of technology in property management, which is in and around payments. So we obviously, run a platform. With me, I've got Phil Tarrant, who is the CEO of Managed, and Bairave Jeyasothy, who is the team leader with customer success. Both work in Managed. There's probably nobody better positioned to talk about not just the technology, because the technology is one thing, but it's really about the outcomes, the changing face of payments, how it impacts all stakeholders in real estate, from, of course, the property manager, who is beholden, with traditional trust accounting in managing reconciliations and balancing the books, ensuring that that all transactions go through smoothly and everything balances at the end of the month and everything is compliant. But there are a lot of different payment structures now, so I thought it was worth just diving into it. So you've got direct automated payments, which you're certainly qualified to talk about. We've got traditional trust accounting, which I don't think we need to sort of demystify that. Then there are, I guess, sort of hybrid models now where you've got some providers that provide faster payments in and out of trust accounting. So I think there's a lot of curiosity amongst the industry. I think there's certainly a lot of interest, amongst owners. So, Phil, you can kick it off.
Thanks for bringing me on to the PMX podcast. I think what you guys are doing is good, more so just outside of the payments infrastructure, but really having informed and educated discussions with what is the centre of property investment industry, and that is the property manager. And I think it's long overdue. So hats off to you and the team for leading a charge on this. So payments is one side of it all. And you become a payments nerd, you become obsessed and absorbed with payments, and you think that's what everyone is connected with, and that's front and center with everyone. You think of politics, everyone talks about the Canberra bubble. People who are inside of the Canberra bubble, they live and breathe. They think that's the world, is that, and then most people don't really care too much. Does the same thing exist in payments inside of real estate? Probably a little bit of it. We're here trying to pioneer a whole new way of transacting funds for rental payments through Managed, and it's been a really interesting and challenging process to do that. And I think the architecture and the platform that we've built is second to none. We still have some way to go, and there's a lot of refinement to it, but the utility of direct and automated payments is absolutely critical. So, yes, it is our world. Yes, it's our bubble.
But it's not for everyone.
But it's not for everyone.
You're quite right, because when we built the platform, and I'm going to call you B because that's what we call you. So
is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
B's been here pretty much since day one, and we built very complex payments infrastructure, believing and thinking that property management would want to embrace automated payments, but it is a small part of the job. But it's still a critical part to look at and to understand. I think there's a lot of confusion around payments.
It's because it's complicated. Sorry, that's my phone go off. It is complicated now. If there's been this incumbency of how real estate rental transactions have taken place through trust accounts over many years, people absorb that. They've probably grown up with it.
Yeah.
It's how they go about doing their business, and that's what's been at this sort of centre of the payment side of real estate rental transactions over decades, right? And running in parallel, that's been the software that supports it.
But even that, though, you look at payments in real estate, payments in real estate have changed. There was a time where you would have real estate agents would go around and collect rent in a bag, right? And that would be deposited into a trust account and then reconciled out of the trust account directly from the bank branch. Yeah. You then have the onset of digital banking, and I'm old enough to remember when that came in. I remember going, I'm not doing anything. I'm never transacting online. I was terrified. It took me a couple of years to trust.
It took payments platforms like PayPal to actually give the inherent trust to Australians and a wider e-commerce community around that. And there is parallels with what we're trying to do inside of Manage. So you've got this incumbent workforce who are used to doing it a particular way with trust accounting. We've pioneered direct and automated payments. And people go, well, why would you do that? What's the need of doing that? Well, payment technology across the world has advanced at such a rapid pace across so many different industry sectors. Property management's been left behind. And I sit there shaking my head like it is literally 10 to 15 years behind other industries.
Yes.
And it's absolutely mind-boggling that no one has done what we've done prior to us doing it. And you sit there and think, wow, what a genius. Well, why wouldn't you use direct and automated payments, which are universal across everywhere else across real estate rental transactions? Now, one of the biggest challenges we've had is, number one, is the change of how property managers do their business. But there's also this undertone of like, but that's not the way it's done. And you have a lot of regulation and compliance built in and around it. So change is hard, change is difficult, and change doesn't happen overnight. And we've been very patient in relation to how we've gone about building out Manage, you particularly on the front line, B, because you sit there at the epicenter of how our clients, i.e. our property managers, connect and integrate with investors and tenants. But what a lot of people inside of property management fail to remember is that this ecosystem is very expansive and broad. So a lot of property managers get caught up in this idea that I just want a platform that just benefits me and benefits the way I've always done things. Correct. And they forget about two and three very other important people: the tenant, the landlord, and the tradies who are in there and supporting it. In our initial interest in investing in a managed platform, and why we're now fully absorbed in, is that we're property investors. And why wouldn't you want your money straight away as a property investor when it's available? Point number one, so it's in your trust account, and we're recording on a Tuesday prior to what will be maybe another interest rate payment. That becomes even more important. But number two, no one's going to nick it on the way through, and this is a big deal.
I want to come back in a moment, and because there's some issues around compliance that I want to address. There's confusion.
There is confusion.
But we're going to come back to that shortly. B, you understand the platform inside out, and you work with not just our customers that have been on the platform for some time, but you're very much at the front line, you and your team, with new entrants coming in. I think there's going to be people tuning in that are going to want to understand the basics. How does money move on a digital automated payments platform? If you want to just give some bit of an oversight to a bit of an insight as to how money moves, how the tenants pay their money, where it goes, how it moves from the tenant to the owner, and how on earth the PM gets their commission.
Yeah, so to put it simply, I would probably refer to how Phil referred to it. It's kind of similar to PayPal. So each user has a digital wallet. So tenants have one.
What is a digital wallet?
A digital wallet, think of it like your real wallet, where money, you put it in and you take it out.
Yeah.
So it's just within
But you
the
just
bank.
transfer it electronically.
Correct. You're transferring it electronically. So tenants would be transferring money either via BPay, direct debit, credit card, or even EFT. And once the funds come into the wallet, the system then automatically looks at what's due for you as a tenant, pays that for you, and then as an owner, depending on your frequency of choice, it will then disperse out that money, net rent, essentially. So you as an owner will receive the remaining funds, or if there's any bills paying, it will immediately pay it out to your tradie, so they receive the funds out instantly too.
It's a concept that is still very new. Now, we've got, since we pioneered this back in 2018, there are other faster payments on, a number of the, they've been sort of outsourced trust account management propositions. I can't talk about that because it's not our technology. So we're crystal clear. We only do one thing. So we're not a hybrid. All we do is automated payments. We stand true to what we've built, and we stand true to what we believe in. And we believe in transparency. We believe in security. We believe in automation. But there are other alternatives. So some of the trust accounting platforms now have faster payments in and out of trust accounts. Again, that's not what we do, but I believe that I think some of them have trust accounts running behind the scenes. Is that
they do. It's a bit opaque. And what I would champion the industry to look at is the removal of the sort of opaque aspects of payments.
So
actually
you can't
bring
answer
to the
this,
fore.
Phil. But what I wonder for the tech platforms that manage trust accounts, who's liable if money goes missing from those trust
Are
accounts?
you talking about these large aggregated trust accounts?
Yes.
Well,
There's various hybrid models that seem to manage trust accounts.
and I see a lot of the larger, maybe real estate franchise groups are doing stuff like this, and they might have company-owned type rent rolls across expansive offices, or they may be providing as a service for smaller agencies. There's a lot of governance around trust account and expectations with it, and again, there's an ecosystem around that protects it in relation to fraud with it. But if I was running a large aggregated trust account, I would be sort of quite concerned around compliance, because technology has great utility in that you tell it what to do and it behaves. When you start throwing humans into the mix is where behaviour starts getting compromised. And as we've seen over many years, and you see it on real estate business nearly daily, is that when there's fraud in real estate transactions, there's always a person involved or people involved.
Yep.
And there's always a reason why the fraud is conducted. But is that human aspect and human element around it? So, core to the managed proposition is that we've moved all those opportunities.
So I'm going to go back to you, B.
place.
So can you just explain who exactly can access funds on the managed platform?
So if a tenant puts money into their wallet, the tenant's the only person who can access it. So they're
But what about the PMs? How can they access any money? Tell me why they can't access the money.
It sort of is to contribute to the frauds that are happening in the trust accounting world, to protect the tenant ultimately. And when the money moves through the platform, the tenant's wallet is the tenant's. So they own that wallet, and they can choose.
Connected directly to the owner's wallet.
Yeah, well, it connects directly to their lease, which then the system will process based on what's actually owing for their lease, not just what the agent feels like. It's actually connected directly to.
So can an agent access any funds apart from their management fee? Because that's then sent to them. But outside the management fee, under any circumstances, can they access any funds on the platform?
No.
Yeah.
No.
And this is the beauty of technologies. It's ones and zeros, and technology follows the rules. And you get boffins who program technology to ensure this, and the architecture that's gone into the formative aspects of management and then the ongoing development of it. Bairave is driven by a very smart and talented engineering team who are really focused on really striking a balance between security and reliability, but with a view towards practicality and pragmatism as well, trying to understand how the business of property management is done, and then providing that facilitation. I guess the challenge we have at Manage, Alex, and you're on the front line with this, is how do we actually support property managers to think a little bit differently about how they conduct their business? And I know we've sort of developed this concept of next gen agencies, and I think next gen agencies are absolutely built around. And you again, Bairave, you're on the front line. I reckon the core aspect of an next gen agency is mindset, and a mindset where they're willing and able to embrace change for the betterment of better client outcomes, better profitability in their business, an easier life to everyone. I don't want to include into this conversation all the trials and tribulations of the challenges the property management industry face in attracting and retaining the best people, but a lot of it's got to do with technology as well.
Yeah, and you can see, like you said, the next-gen agencies, I think a big part of it is accepting that there is something wrong in the current industry as well, and the current process in how they follow it, especially with the trust accounting solutions. A lot of the next-gen agencies understand that and want to give a better solution to not just themselves, but their ecosystem as well, including the owners, tenants, and the tradies. So it makes the biggest difference, if you ask me. And you can tell when they're joining the platform of their interest in the payment sector especially, and focusing on providing that benefits to their landlords and tenants.
Well, one of the things that I get great satisfaction out of is when I speak to manage customers, and by that I'm saying property managers, but also with investors, is they have this great affinity, and you don't really see it anywhere else, but they have this great affinity with the payments ecosystem. Now, some of their frustrations are that, oh, look, it'd be ... if your system also did ... I've got this particular user case, and it'd be great if you can get your nerds to write some code so it does that, and they're trying to govern that conversation. We can't do everything all the time for everyone, but they're so connected with the payments capability. And when they have that realization where they say, and you hear all the time, why would anyone want to do it another way? The payments infrastructure is absolutely critical to it and central to it. So that's a great position of strength for us to build on and around over time. But, there's still things to tinker with in the background.
Phil, we're going to take a break, but there are some warts that we're going to talk about. It's very easy to paint all the benefits and the pros. And from a user perspective, there are many benefits with the automation. There are some warts, so we'll have a chat about those when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Great to have you with us. Bairave, Phil Tarrant, myself. We're talking about payments. We're kind of morphing and moving in and around so the industry in general. We talked about the benefits of automation, no manual reconciliations, end-to-end transactions, clean, crystal clear, unpenetrable from outside forces. You're talking about direct connection between owner and tenant with an algorithm that sets off the management fee on each individual property. Nice and clear. It costs money, right? Money doesn't move, it doesn't move through the air magically. There are costs associated. And this is one of the realities of, we're pure driven, true to the cause of automation. We don't muck around with running a trust account in the background. So we cater for a particular segment of the market that also wants those outcomes, but they come at a cost. So there are transaction fees. So when we built the platform, and it's interesting to see some of the media ire around some of the platforms around scorching tenants, which is something that we've never done. We have the usual, and I think some of the other platforms have maybe remedied that now as things have progressed. But we have 2 free payment methods for the tenants, which are
BPay and EFT. So EFT is instant as well, so you can immediately pay it into your wallet.
But they're not really free, are they? There is still a cost associated.
Is a cost, yes.
So one of the things that our customers that we have to be very clear with on the outset is the costs of using the platform. So there are certain transactions that incur a $1.20 fee. If you manage your agency effectively and understand the fee infrastructure. So we charge a subscription, same as all the other platforms, which is, kind of pretty much at market. But then the interesting thing with managed is understanding the management of transaction fees and where they're applied. Our best agencies, I think, when I say our best agencies, I think our most in tune agencies understand that they can pass that on to the owner. And this is a whole another conversation. Something I'm very focused on broadly with PMX is really understanding the customer, because I think most property managers, most agencies do not understand the customer, I'll tell you. They because they don't really give the customer what they could give the customer, and that isn't maintenance and tenants and lease renewals and all the other doing, owners don't really understand. They expect that. I think agencies, next-gen agencies that understand the customer, owners, yes, but largely investors. And Phil, you're talking and you're very focused on the apply to the investor. We're not going to get into that now. But the future of real estate, the future of property management is a more aligned PM that is an enabler for the customer, that can have a conversation about investment structure, about market conditions, about being aligned with the property, rather than being. And I did a podcast with Tom Panos last week. Tom, I didn't, went into it not knowing what was going to come up. Tom's really on the ball, and he said, PMs are largely the deliverer of bad news. And he gave a scenario of he got one PM that was proactive and one PM that just gave him bad news. The reality is, you've got a lot of the things you have to deliver are not ideal things for owners, but there is a proactivity in managing that relationship, providing information on the asset that you are both involved with in management. So again, I'm going back to next-gen agencies. The agencies that I see do this the best. They understand their customer. They're proactive with their customer. They often charge higher fees. Talk to Tara Bradbury, who charges a flat fee. Absolutely incredible story from Tara, and check out that podcast if you want to learn more about her structure. But if you own your relationship with your owner, if you're proactive and constructive and positive, owners will take fees. If there's a couple of dollars in transactions for the benefit of secure money, your money can never be stolen. It can be never misappropriated. There can't be any errors, and you can have it instantly.
I think
they don't mind.
Most investors would be happy paying a small fee connected with that, and you know, people get absorbed and obsessed around the fee aspect around it.
A lot of our agents absorb it themselves.
They do, right? But you think about it, right? If you've got a trust accountant sitting there at $100,000 a year, that's a lot of $1.20 transactions that you're paying for, right? And again, it comes back to agent productivity. So you've got to be sensible about how you approach those conversations. To pick up a point you said, Alex, and this is key, is that I'm really fatigued, and I've sort of got to be in my bonnet around it at the moment, is that it's always painted the property management space as tenant versus landlord.
Yeah.
And that is a fundamental script that needs to change. And this is propagated by a lot of community groups that it's tenant versus landlord, and the poor property manager sitting in the middle trying to be the arbitrator of all the problems and issues there. That needs to change completely, and next gen agencies obviously see that, but they're confident and comfortable having those conversations with both sides of the ledger and being able to steer and educate.
The owner pays the PM. I'm going to say it as it is.
And that's the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So, but you think about the cash economy. People think cash is free. No, it's not. Mate. You go and take $50 out of the ATM, you get slugged $2 or $3.
Yeah, you do.
Take $100, it's still $2 to $3.
Tap your
$500.
phone. Tap your phone. You don't see the money coming out of your account, but I can tell you they're
time you do
it.
There's, and I know the government's sort of looking to get greater clarity in and around it, but it costs money to move money around.
Yep.
You know, you get an armor guard truck that used to get robbed on a Friday for payroll. That was the heady days of when criminals actually put a balaclava on and a shotgun and actually stole the money rather than hiding behind a computer somewhere. But there is costs connected with the movement of money, particularly if it's secure.
So here's the thing, and again, back to managed, and this is conceptually, if I've got a trust account, I've got a big vat of money, a well of money, sloshing about, no one really quite knows what's in there, money moves in and moves out, but there's always like a residual of money in there. With ours, because there's no vat of money, every single account is connected along one linear line.
Well, the actual dollar you put into the system at the start is exactly the same dollar that goes to the person at the end.
But there's no, you've got thousands, tens of thousands of different connections. You can't hack into the system and pinch them all because every single one is different. With bank accounts, it's infallible to theft and misappropriation.
But it's really getting beyond this idea of okay.
There is a cost.
What are you doing around the cost?
It costs money. That security, transparency, efficiency has a cost. I don't want to get bogged down on cost. You're talking about $1.20 for the transactions, and that doesn't involve, you know, once you're within the wallet ecosystem, there's no cost. It's money in and money out.
Again, it's quite opaque, and as someone with a pretty large property portfolio,
I'm good at and it's. One of the biggest issues I think that people come in, and sorry to cut you off there, Phil, is around compliance, and it's worth addressing the elephant in the room. You know, people will say you're not compliant. How can you be compliant? Well, the bottom line is that you have compliance is built around trust accounts and trust money. So we're post compliance. There is no compliance around managed because we sit outside of. There is no trust money, because it doesn't go into a trust account. And this is the thing that is hard to articulate. We have the same objectives, by the way, you know, in some format with, you know, various consumer fairs and fair trading. You know, we are completely and utterly driven to eradicate theft and misappropriation and error, which we successfully do on the platform. You know, so we're aligned with them in those objectives, but we are certainly not compliant because we don't comply to the legislation because there is no trust money. We're kind of more akin to a direct outside of PM because the PM doesn't touch the money. So there's no trust money, there's no trust account. So we kind of, we get asked a lot, you know, look, obviously when, you know, for the 300 plus customers that are on the platform and the $5.5 billion that have been transacted through the platform, when you know, and it's not an issue. No one on the platform has any concerns about whether you're compliant or not. But it is a very valid concern for customers coming in. A lot of people will look at managed, you know, there's a lot of people that don't even look at it because they go, I don't understand how it can be compliant. It is, everyone knows that our competitors very quickly go, how can that be compliant? Even Min, who's joined us when she worked for another large trust accounting software platform would tell people, well, it can't be compliant. So, but hey, guess what? Right now in the marketplace, we're not for everyone. You know, we're not looking to take over the entire PM ecosystem because most of them are not ready. Mm-hmm. We're a next-gen proposition for next-gen agencies that are focused on fast growth and on doing things better.
Well, there's a compliance regime connected with the ownership and the operation of a trust account. So to your point there, because there is no trust account, therefore a different regime applies. A third of Australians who rent, or a third of property investors who have investment properties self-managed, and money there flows directly between tenant and landlord, right? It's just within the space where property managers operate, they're governed by an act that has been built around the incumbency of a trust account, right? And
to safeguard
that
people's money.
Pre-technology, pre-technology that was
and it's critical. It's critical legislation, and they work and the various legislative groups in every state work hard. Yeah, they audit trust accounts,
and rightfully, you've got to protect people's dough, the tenant sort of putting it in and the money going out to the landlord. But there is a cost connected in with this, and I think the opportunity for the property management space is to actually understand. It's not for everyone, as you said, but to actually understand how a platform can actually benefit all aspects of their agency, whether it's creating a better atmosphere and a better environment for their people to operate within. That's less stressful and more conducive to actually supporting investors to create better investments. That's a critical aspect of it. And to the point around why would you choose to be a property manager and property management as a career when you've got this sort of archaic way in which it's done? You can see why people burn through this industry so quickly and leave it on the other side and go find something else. So that's a holistic motherhood issue for the whole industry. But if I was building out a property management business right now, and we see it all the time, and maybe this is one of the reasons why, Alex, that startups most resonate to the managed system is that it's because if you're starting from new, wouldn't you choose
can start fresh?
New,
but it's not just about you're absolutely right, Phil. And it's not just about I don't want to run a trust account. I think quite a lot of people come in because they go, I don't want to run a trust account, but then they understand that there is a better way to run a PM business.
That you get as well, right?
Automation of everything. We're not here to talk about the platform. We're just here to talk about payments, but. There is just a better way to do property management. And if you're starting afresh, you don't have any legacy kind of issues to change the way you've always done things. And I won't, there are agencies, some large agencies that do things and they've done it the same way for a long time.
It's bold and courageous to actually have a look at your organization, your business and say, yes, change will help, but change will be hard.
The fundamental thing is though, Phil, and I'll come back to this, technology does one thing, it's a small element. The fundamental shift has to be in understanding the customer. Yeah. There is a huge opportunity, but I'll tell you something, right? Property management in its current format will end up being disrupted because if all you do is coordinate maintenance, if all you do is, renew leases, if all you do is the mechanical doing, if you do not have a relationship of value with your owner, sooner or later, you will be replaced.
Well, we're about to have one of the most seismic shifts, I believe, in the way in which property is governed and regulated and invested in Australia with the forthcoming budget that we're looking at. So even more so, all of those things are going to become more apparent and clear because if there's greater pressure on investors around the economics and mechanics, that they need it.
The PM is there. No one else is like a next-gen PM who doesn't just do the doing, who actually, it's all about value. Look, you're an owner, same as myself, and you see how our customers are. Those, Oz Realty is probably one of the pin-ups in terms of agencies on our platform. They just get it. They have this relationship with their owners, and they get it. And there are many others. Look, they're not the only one.
There's lots of analogues to this, and I introduced this idea a month or so ago, that during the COVID pandemic, accountants were the doctors and nurses of small business in Australia. And they sat at the centre of applying changes to the regime and benefits and insights to small businesses in many ways help sustain small businesses through that COVID pandemic. And irrespective of the COVID, accountants are critical to small business in Australia. Property managers play that same role, I would say, to property investors. And
totally.
they sit there and they implement the governments of the day, whether it's the state governments at a fair trading level or federal. They come up and have all these changes. Guess who has to implement them? It's the poor old property manager, right? So the relationship that your property manager has with their investors and vice versa is absolutely fundamental and critical. Now, you look at the accounting industry, and there's been a shift over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, and it's consistent with what you were saying, Alex, is that those accountants that just do your tax return and do the compliance bit, they're getting disrupted at a rapid rate, and they're just not relevant anymore. The accountants that are providing core and real service to the business communities are those people who are consultants, those people who are business partners. They sit there side by side to ensure that you're maximising your investment. The same thing applies to property managers. If all you do is, to your point, arrange some quotes and do some repairs and maintenance and bits and bobs around the edges, you're going to be disrupted rapidly, right? And it's funny when I speak to property managers, it's like they're holding on to this relevance around, but that's what we do. That's how we do it. That's how we've always done it.
And you still got to do it, but it's. I'm not saying that you don't do any of the things that you do. It's about. And again, where do you start with this? If you look again, if you have a platform that reduces the manual tasks, you've got more time to invest. But it's a mindset thing, Phil. Yeah. And maybe it's there's a lot of, I hear crazy stuff with, PMs that they kind of they almost have their owners are like badly behaved dogs. Mm-hmm. They let them behave badly. You bring your owner in, and I'm an owner. We've got a large portfolio. You've got to train your owner. And the way you train your owner is by instilling the value that you bring to the relationship as a PM. You can't, if you've always just let owners don't really understand a lot about property investment. Most of them have got one property. Yeah. They don't really know. PMs have multiple properties on their rent roll. They know what is going on. They understand investment. They should do. The value that you can transfer to that by seeing what is happening on your rent roll, articulating that to your owner, sharing that. Most owners don't know the reality of depreciation, the reality of the rental market. They may not have a good investment.
How are they going to know? They change the rules every day, right? Seriously, they're trying to be the custodian. You've got to be a custodian, and that's where the value lies. And there's some real uncomfortable truths there for property managers, I think, where if that's the way you've always done it, and you're trained that way by maybe someone who's more senior, who may be a little bit more archaic in the thinking or haven't kept up with the changes, it's going to compromise your ability to build a PM business.
I believe very strongly in this. Look, I don't want to overstep my mark because I'm not a property manager, and I don't want to be disrespectful because property managers work. I'm not a criticism of what property managers do. It's really about they're still going to have to do the things they do. They can automate some things, but it's about missing the opportunity. But anyway, it's probably due for this podcast. I've got myself all excited. We've moved away from payments, but I think it's an important conversation to have. Phil,
thank you.
Appreciate you taking time to catch up. B, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us again. For everyone else, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I do really appreciate having you with us. Let me know your comments. You can get in touch with me, and we'll catch up with you next week.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.